As a human, if you are looking to change the way you treat plants and animals, learn from them even, then listen to this episode of the Retro Rewind podcast.
Reflux capacitor, fluxing, crew to stations. Scanning for King Kong vs. Godzilla, 1962. Prepare to rewind in 3, 2, 1.
Welcome, Rewinders and new listeners, to the Retro Rewind podcast, where we take a fresh look at movies and games from 15 or more years ago. I'm your captain of the pod, Francisco Ruiz, and I'm joined by your XO and mine, Paul, the Master Interrupter Kaiju Powers.
Yeah, Team Godzilla representing.
Also, for this discussion of the film King Kong versus Godzilla, we welcome back aboard professional writer, raging nerd, and host of the Monster Island Film Vault podcast, Nathan Marchand. Welcome, Nathan.
Hello, Retro Rewinders.
Hello, Nathan.
Come on. Everywhere I go, I bring a much needed Robin Williams energy. Haven't you seen Good Morning Vietnam?
I have.
What?
I have seen Good Morning Vietnam.
Yeah, that's where the shtick came from, man.
How is
that
Vietnam related to your Kaiju Island, though?
No, how Robin Williams does his radio show in that movie.
I understand that, but you're connecting it. You're the Monster Film, the Monster Island Film Vault guy. And you're quoting Robin Williams. Has Robin Williams ever been in a kaiju movie? Where's the connection?
He's a monster himself. If you ever, I mean, a monster talented.
I guess he does have
monstrously talented.
Oh,
yes.
Why are we talking about Robin Williams?
Well, and then there's my master interrupter, my intrepid producer, Jimmy from NASA. Yes, you survived the infamous war in space, and you still won't tell me how. At this point, he's just content to hang out with Alice over there. So
I guess we can have Timmy aboard. It's fine.
Timmy.
Yeah, that's what I said. Yeah. That's what I said.
Timmy is his cousin.
Timmy!
Anyway, now that you have a quick flyby of who we are, Paul, can you give us a quick overview of the production specs for King Kong versus Godzilla?
Sure. Just a point to make that this is not Godzilla versus King Kong, which is, supposed to be released later this year in 2021. This is King Kong versus Godzilla, the 1962 version, which came out August 11th of that year. It runs 1 hour and 31 minutes and is unrated. It was directed by, here we go with the names again.
Do I have to help you? Do I have to hold your hand here, Paul?
Yes. Mr. Honda. What's his first name?
Ishiro Honda.
Yes. And Tom Montgomery co-directed this, I guess, because there's a Japanese version and an American United States version.
Mm-hmm. Oh, geez. The American version. Oh.
Yeah. So it was written by... the Japanese name is Shinichi?
Shinichi.
Yes. Sekizawa.
Sekizawa, yes, you got it.
And then Paul Mason helped on the American side. And with the lead stars being Tato Takashima, Kenji Sahara, and
Kenji Sahara.
Yeah, and Yu Fujiki.
Very nice, Paul. Good job.
I'm trying not to say a bad
Just one
word
more. Just one more.
Okay, the music was... This is the Barry guy. Music was composed by Akira Ifukube, how do you...
Ifukube.
Wow.
There we go.
Wow.
Okay. King Kong versus Godzilla was made for about $620,000. That means that the Japanese contributed about $220,000, and then the Americans contribute about $200,000. Sorry,
$420,000.
Scratch that.
You got it.
It was made for about $620,000. The Japanese contribute about $420,000.
There you go.
And the Americans submitted about $200,000 on their end.
So did you have to do all of this conversion from yen to dollars and factor for inflation and all that fun stuff?
This is not counting for inflation. It was 150 million at the time, 150 million yen at the time. And not counting inflation, it earned about $10 million at the box office worldwide.
Ooh.
So,
Although there is,
yeah, go for it.
I was going to say, there's one very important number that needs to be mentioned here, and that is because usually with Japanese films, at least with Toho, they're spending, they don't necessarily bring up the actual amount of money that it earns. They count the number of tickets. This sold 11 million tickets in Japan alone.
Ooh. That
Nice.
is, and I think I read that this is still the highest audience of any Godzilla movie in Japan. Something
This
like that.
is the most attended Godzilla film in the entire franchise.
Wow.
There
That's
you go.
a bit bonkers.
All right. So this was released in 1962. Let's see if we can stump our resident kaiju guru here,
Indeed.
because precise records are hard to find before the late 1970s. So here's today's box office trivia question. How high do you think it ranks among the other movies released in 1962 in just the U.S. alone?
Oh. Huh.
Oh,
It's in the top 100.
Okay, top 100.
Really? It's in the
least
top
in the
100.
US. Okay.
Although your numbers are a little off. This was released stateside in 1963.
63, right? Yeah.
Yeah. It was
Yes.
1962 for Japan.
Okay, but it's still in it's okay. According to the websites I researched, they're still counting it for 1962. I don't know
And
why.
if it's on the
Which is
internet,
fine.
it must be real. I mean, really. Come
yeah.
on, guys.
So this page, I'm getting this particular number from ultimatemovierankings.com.
Oh, interesting.
See you
I'll have
later,
to check
the numbers.
that website out. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so where does it rank? Where does King Kong versus Godzilla rank of all in the top 100 of 1962 films in the U.S.?
Not counting inflation.
You know-
Not counting inflation.
Yes.
Nathan, are you ready to make a guess? Chat, ready?
Yes. Yeah, and I'm just going to do it because you have to give this. This is the nerd answer that you must give for such things. 42.
Yeah, Bob was.
Sorry,
I also
Bob,
saw that in the
42's
chat,
been
so I'm
taken.
stealing it.
So Nathan predicts 42. Let's see, and I'm going. Well, I'll redeem to talk of 25.
Hey, Bex.
Yeah, it's a little Vex. Or maybe Tim's there watching too. You never know. 27 from Cardinal. For me, I'm gonna. I really don't know. I'm gonna guess 40. 40, I guess.
Man, you guys, they wish it was 70 in the U.S.
Ooh.
So
Oh, okay.
Wah, 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 wah. Where's the Womp train for that? Where's the Womp train for that? Anyway,
there it
that
goes.
works.
There you go. I have it. I brought my
Nice.
portable soundboard with me for this
Fantastic.
occasion.
But I mean, all things said, top 70 of 100 movies. I don't know how many movies were released back then.
Over 100.
Okay, then I guess that's decent. Decent, I suppose. But thank you for those factoids, Paul. And let's see
139
if
according to this
any of them factor into our memory mind melt or subsequent roundtable discussion, which we'll get into once Alice has located our target film.
Yes. Let's go, Alice.
Alert, alert. Approaching target. Spoilers incoming. Establishing analysis vector.
That trailer.
The mightiest monsters of all time, King Kong, Mammoth, Unconquerable versus Godzilla, released from an icy tomb to pulverize a panic-stricken world. King Kong, Godzilla, together on a rampage of destruction, fire-breathing, colossal Godzilla, impervious to man's most fiery weapons. Nothing you have ever seen, nothing you have ever felt could prepare you for this colossus of entertainment. Spectacular, unbelievable, the world's mightiest monsters in the battle of the century. Mighty King Kong, immune even to 1 billion volts of electricity. Godzilla, immune to man's most fiery weapons.
Oh, that was amazing. I've never seen that. That's cool.
I love the hyperbole of old movie trailers.
Oh, yeah.
That commercial definitely brings back some memories about King Kong versus Godzilla, if we had any. But to give you some context for the things we collectively remembered most before our rewatch of this film, here is our memory mind melt synopsis. Godzilla emerges from an iceberg after being rudely awoken by his submarine alarm clock. So Japan kidnaps King Kong to stop Godzilla, but King Kong has a drinking problem and gets drunk on red berry juice while native girls dance and sing. It ends up with pro wrestling pay-per-view on Mount Fuji as King Kong tries to stuff a tree down Godzilla's throat. King Kong grabs Godzilla by the tail and throws him for the win. King Kong swims away. That seemed. I don't think it was on Mount Fuji. I think that's the only part that may have been incepted.
No, it is Mount Fuji.
Well,
I can confirm.
Japan didn't kidnap King Kong to stop Godzilla. They wanted it for their own.
Pharmaceutical promotions. That's right. So wait, totally decepted. Based on those memories, as very flawed. I mean, ridiculously flawed as they were. Flawed being probably pretty on point. What rating did they lead you to predict for this film before rewatching it? Classic, nostalgic, or tragic? And I'll say for myself, I had not watched this before. This is my first time watching it. And I think, did we all watch the Japanese version? Is that accurate?
I did.
Okay.
I did.
And then
I
me and
watched
Paul did
both,
as well.
actually.
Oh, both. Okay, interesting. So let's start with Nathan. What was your prediction for King Kong vs. Godzilla?
Would you expect anything less than classic from me? I'm the kaiju guy. So.
I mean, maybe.
Oh.
You never know.
Yeah. So classic.
Classic? Okay. I want an affirmative. Like, is it actually? Okay, classic from Nathan.
I was teetering between tragic and nostalgic, and I thought it would be tragic for me personally, but overall nostalgic for the general audience. So I was going for nostalgic.
All right, cool. And for me, I predicted tragic. I'd never seen it. The little bits I had seen of it didn't look interesting to me. So we're running the board, and I've never. Well, here's the thing, Paul. I've never been huge in either King Kong or Godzilla.
Get out.
I'm sure.
Okay.
This is why you had me on, because you knew.
Okay.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
I can bring the giant monster fandom to
There
this
we go.
podcast.
I'm sure
So we had to balance things out. Okay.
the Dapperman is
enough.
like, why can't I be?
This might be the most at this point.
Go ahead.
At this point, this could be the most contested movie you guys have ever reviewed.
I don't
We'll see.
know. There was one just recently that was pretty contested. Was that Homeward Bound? I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's two classics and two tragics.
I haven't listened to that episode yet,
Anyway.
actually.
What was that?
I said I haven't listened to that episode yet, actually.
No worries at all.
So much.
What? What? Oh my gosh. Anyway, guys, it'll be interesting to see if those predictions come true. But first, let's get into our discussion of the things we liked most about King Kong vs. Godzilla. Let's spin up our
Best three.
best three things of this movie. And let's start with Nathan. What's something you liked about King Kong vs. Godzilla?
Well, the first thing that I'm going to bring up is something that is sadly mostly absent in the American cut of this movie, and that is the satire. A lot of people don't realize, if they've grown up on the dubbed version, which did get re-edited as well with new scenes put into it and all of that, and that's a whole to-do. But This is a satire of commercialism, which, as you watch this, you can tell.
Oh, I didn't. But okay, good to know.
Well, but that's why you have things like the one character that we're introduced who plays drums. What's he doing at the beginning of the movie? He's playing drums. I think it's supposed to be a gum commercial. And
Yes,
the
that's
reason,
right.
yeah, and then you have things in here like they're talking about, the pharmaceutical company is trying to get Kong as basically a mascot. They bring him to Japan as a publicity stunt, and that goes as well as you would expect. And then they start talking about things like, how can we increase our ratings on television? Because TV was a new thing in 1962. And
I never thought about that. Yeah.
That is so funny, because the whole idea of bringing King Kong into this is like a commercial, a gimmick to sell more tickets of this movie.
Yes,
Interesting.
in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And there's even one of the things that I love that they cut out of the American version is there's a meta joke in this because somebody says, "Oh, now we have Godzilla and Kong running around," and somebody says they're going to make a movie about this. I'm like, yeah. And then they keep talking about the idea of Godzilla versus King Kong having great marquee value, and they treat the two of them meeting each other and fighting each other like it's a wrestling match. So that's so it's I'm just waiting for Godzilla and Kong to cut a promo. At Mount Fuji at WrestleMania, Kong. That's sort of a thing. It is all over the place. And the thing that, especially the commercial we have in the beginning, you know what it honestly kind of reminds me of, and that's RoboCop. Because RoboCop was full of satire like that as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I've heard that. I haven't seen it, but I've heard that.
Oh, you don't like RoboCop? Oh my gosh, guys! Geez, RoboCop's so great. You're mocking about not
just
being
watch RoboCop.
a Godzilla fan, Paul. I'm just dishing it back out. That's all.
Okay,
good. You know what's interesting though, Nathan? That my first sort of goes off yours a bit. I just really found the advertising exec for what was it? Pharmaceuticals.
Pacific Pharmaceuticals.
The guy with the mustache. I thought he just was
Mr. Taco.
Mr. Taco.
Yeah,
he was so
I
over
thought
the
that
top.
was-
I loved him, and just he's so we gotta get all the best. And it's just so good.
He might be one of the best character in the whole movie, to be honest.
Yes.
And I actually had him on my list of potential best 3. So I'm glad that you brought him up so we can actually talk about him a little bit.
Yeah.
But what's interesting?
I was about to say real quick, when I saw the American version, they pronounced his name Taco so much like a Mexican taco that for some reason I didn't make the connection when I watched the Japanese version. But the American version, they call him Taco. I'm like, is that his real name?
I think that is actually how it is to be pronounced. That is the only way I've ever heard it pronounced.
I guess maybe the way the Japanese say it sounds slightly different. I don't know what it is, but anyway, Mr.
It
Taco,
probably does, but it probably does, but it's a little hard to hear. But what's interesting is, and I looked up the actor's name. His name is Ichiro Arishima, and he was actually considered to be basically the Japanese Charlie Chaplin at the time.
Oh, really?
Oh, wow.
That's pretty cool.
He did a lot.
Yeah, which you can definitely see in his performance. He has a very old Hollywood, 1920s, 1930s style of acting. He's very over the top, big gestures. He's like, I don't know if you guys have seen the original King Kong, but he's basically Carl Denham in this, except he's except he's a corporate executive and not a film director.
Right. He reminded me of like a Warner Brothers Looney Tune cartoon almost.
Yes, I could see that. Yeah.
Almost pushing the bomb to set off on the boat and not.
Well, no, that was an accident. That was an accident. And I love how they're like, don't touch it. He's like, he starts freaking out, and then he accidentally falls on it.
Yeah.
and then it is kind of like Looney Tunes at that point, because you're just sitting there going, where's the kaboom? The earth-shattering kaboom. And then, so nothing happens, and then they have to shoot the dynamite.
Yeah.
To make it explode, which ends up doing nothing anyway.
So that's where Jaws got that's where Steven Spielberg got their inspiration. I see.
Yeah.
King Kong versus Godzilla. Paul, what was inspiring about this movie for you? Was it one of the characters or something else?
And this is a little thing of mine. I don't know why, but I do know why, where they make giant monsters move really slow. And I guess
Stop
that's
motion?
to make them no, just like, I'm going to show its size by having it move slow.
Oh, yes. Yes,
so
that
one of the things that I loved seeing in this is like coming from the original Gojira film that we reviewed, having a full-size Godzilla with his tail whapping around quickly, I thought was amazing. All right, let's get into this. Let's have some real fun with some kaijus here. So that was fine. That was fun to see a lot of, well, I wouldn't say live action, but there's more action to it. These kaiju.
It's livelier.
Yes,
it's livelier.
Yes, that's
which
it.
is this movie was also a bit of a turning point for the franchise. Interestingly, this was the third film for both Godzilla and Kong. It was the first time both of them were seen in widescreen, and the first time both of them were seen in color, which is really which is kind of crazy when you stop and think about it. But they were transitioning toward a slightly different style where they were making the monsters livelier and with how they move. I mean, when you watch the battle at the end, which I'll bring up a little bit later, it's very kinetic, it's very energetic. It's a big difference from what you guys saw in Godzilla 54, but this was 8 years later, so they had been progressing, making some other films like Rodan, the Mysterians, Mothra, and they were moving toward this as closer as their standard style for definitely for the 60s and even for a little while into the 70s.
Well, that's good to know. I had no idea that was there. Though I will say, Nathan, you totally stepped on our trivial question for later, so thanks a lot.
Awesome.
Oh, darn it.
You should get a prize.
You Godzilla stomped on it, so that's fine. It's apropos. I appreciate that. But let's go back to you, Nathan, for something.
Yes, Jimmy, I know you're disappointed.
What's something else you enjoyed about this film, Nathan?
Well, I'm going to go with another thing that is unfortunately largely absent from the Americanized version, and that is the score. The score by Ufukube. Ufukube.
Ufukube, yes.
Yeah, because unfortunately, when Universal brought the movie over in 1963 to the United States, they cut most of Ufukube's music out of it. I think they only left 2 tracks in, which was the...
I mean, it's good. Yeah.
Yeah, they cut out all of his music except for the opening credits, the opening theme, and the Islanders, song to Kong. That's all they left in. And then they replaced it with just a bunch of stock music from their previous movies. Yeah, most notably, interestingly enough, music from Creature from the Black Lagoon, which when I watched Creature from the Black Lagoon, the whole time I was waiting for music I knew from this movie.
That's funny.
King Kong gonna show up?
And that's the movie that inspired the original Godzilla, right? Or no,
Beast from 20,000 Fathoms.
That's right. They're both in the sea, under the sea, down where it's wetter, down where it's better. Something.
Take it from you.
Yeah.
Actually, that goes right.
I'm not a big fan of The Little Mermaid, so don't get me started.
No, that's fine. We're
anyway, I had written
down
the opening theme. I was not expecting that intense music right away, and that theme I thought was great. It reminded me, I felt like I was in the Temple of Doom.
Yeah.
With the chanting going on. Yeah. I thought the music that they did keep was great.
Yeah, that theme, especially when you get to the island when the Islanders start singing it's considered iconic in its own way. A lot of fans are actually hoping that it shows up in Godzilla versus Kong, not King Kong versus Godzilla. Yeah, so we're talking about monkey lizard punchy punchy, not lizard monkey punchy punchy.
Right.
Okay.
Wow, where does that come from? Is that a meme or something? I've never heard this. Lizard monkey punchy.
I may have heard it someplace, but I just started saying it as a funny descriptor of the movie, just because I think it's funny.
Yes.
I'm going to meme it because I'm going to do an episode of my show on the new movie, and I am going to meme that.
Awesome.
There you go.
So yeah, I agree with you guys. The music was great. I'm surprised to hear that they took it out of the United States version because it fits so well. But something something that has nothing to do with the music really that I liked was that and maybe you can help me understand this because it's I don't really understand. I like that King Kong is a lightning type Pokemon. I mean kaiju. But why is he lightning? Why does he absorb lightning or can shoot lightning? What's the story behind that?
Because in his island, there is nothing for him to do except be struck by lightning and drink the berry juice.
Yeah, don't you know this?
Oh, yeah.
Do you want to know the real world reason why?
Yes, I do.
Because they had to come up with something, which I thought was brilliant. I'm like, how is this monkey this ape, because he doesn't have a tail, How is he
Yes,
gonna,
VeggieTales told us this.
Yes, that's true. That's where I remember that from. But I was wondering how is that even like a thing? Like, of course Godzilla's gonna roast him. How could they even fight? So I like they gave him this electric edge.
That's
Totally.
basically what they did, because as I said right before we went on the air, this is not the Kong from the 1933 film. This is a Toho reimagined version. He's much larger. He's almost as tall as Godzilla, whereas the original Kong was maybe 25 feet. He would come up to Godzilla's ankle, basically, maybe his knee on a good day. But yeah, so he's larger, and they gave him that to help equalize things, because Godzilla's basically a walking flamethrower. But it's also, and I won't get into, it's a long, involved, sort of convoluted and kind of tragic story about how this movie got made. But this was based to the TLDR of it is that this was originally supposed to be King Kong versus Frankenstein.
Yeah,
really. Oh,
yeah. So I think the electricity thing is a holdover, because when that script was getting shopped around and it eventually got to Toho said, "Hey, let's drop Frankenstein and put in Godzilla."
Yeah,
and we'll make it our 30th anniversary movie. So they probably just said, well, Frankenstein likes electricity, give it to the ape. So.
And I was going to bring that up, but thank you for bringing that up, because I was going to have people to check out your Monster Island Film Vault podcast, where you actually talk about the beginnings of that.
Yes. I believe I could be getting my own episode numbers wrong. I think it's around episode 5. I had John
it's one
LeMay.
Of the earlier ones.
Yeah, I had John LeMay on for that episode, and we talked about a pair of unmade Godzilla, not just Godzilla, but unmade King Kong films that are related to this one. One being King Kong versus Frankenstein. The other one, because you would expect this, because this movie was a giant hit. They did try to have a rematch back in the 60s. It got as far as a story treatment, but it never got made, unfortunately. It was called Continuation King Kong versus Godzilla.
It's being made right now. Do you know? In 2021.
Well, this is actually Godzilla versus Kong, not King Kong. Again, they changed the ape.
Oh, really?
Due to legal reasons.
See, here's the thing, guys. Both with this version and the last version, and this isn't in my dislikes or anything, so I'm going to just place it here since it's apropos to what we're talking about. I almost feel like it would have been more interesting of a fight and more of like a David versus Goliath type situation if you had King Kong be his like 25 feet. And I don't know, you have a little person actor in an ape suit or something, and he's like having to crawl up Godzilla and like hit him and just do all
Godzilla steps
What's
on
he gonna
him?
do? What's he gonna do? Hope that he can gouge out his eyes or something?
He's smart and stuff, so he can.
No, David was a lot taller compared to Goliath than that match.
I now have this funny image in my head of Kong with a sling and being like,
yes,
and then trying to embed a rock
or something.
I mean, come on, dude. He does Kong throws rocks at Godzilla. Doesn't that count?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm sure. I mean, and it could give him the lightning power still or something. I don't know. I just think that would have been a cool visual to have a small King Kong versus this large Godzilla, and he still is able to vanquish him. I think that would have been cool. Just saying. Anyway,
kind of like not ants, Bug's Life, where there's like a lot. No, wait, that's more than one. I don't understand how that would work.
I don't know.
Maybe if he's so small, he's a virus or something. I don't know.
Okay, Merlin. All right.
Yeah, I don't understand how that would work.
Anyway, guys. So those are the things we like. Let's get to our classic makers, though. The things we loved most about King Kong vs. Godzilla. And let's start with Paul this time.
I liked... how long is this movie? It was
an hour 20, hour 30,
it's
hour
not
40.
even 100 minutes. I think you said 91. I think it's more like 98.
Minutes. Yeah. So basically the last 10 minutes, maybe the last 5 minutes when they're actually fighting King Kong and Godzilla, that was by far my favorite part. When they're actually wrestling and flipping each other around. It's like, this is what I came to see. So that was my classic maker. My favorite part.
Very cool. Yeah, I wasn't 9 off at all during that part. Nathan, what was your I was going to say Final Rain, but no, what was your classic maker for King Kong?
Paul beat me to it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Paul beat me to it. It's the final battle, man.
Yeah.
That's what we came to see, and it delivers.
Yeah.
This, like I said, is a much livelier fight. The fight choreography in this is absolutely just bonkers.
Yeah.
When you stop and think about it. I mean, if you see the first sequel to Godzilla, to the original Godzilla, it's called Godzilla Raids Again. This is nothing by comparison. They tried to make it that first battle, in that movie, they tried to make it look more like a pair of animals trying to kill each other. And this one, they're like, this is a pro wrestling match, and we're treating it like a pro wrestling match. So you've got Kong judo flip, like shoulder throwing and judo flipping Godzilla. It is ridiculous. And you want to know how hardcore those suit actors were? Haruo Nakajima, who was in that Godzilla suit when Kong flips him.
Yeah.
Normally, I think later on they started, when they would do crazy flips like that, they would use empty suits. Nakajima, for whatever reason, was still in that suit when they did that. It is absolutely insane. That is how hardcore they were.
That's
Do
crazy.
not. Anytime somebody tries to mock Suitmation, I get angry because, like, you do not realize how difficult it is to do this and how much of an art form it is. It is, I dare you to put on 100 pounds of padding and rubber and see how long you can walk around on a miniature set. Go ahead.
No,
try it.
I'm out.
I'll try it, and I will dominate. But yeah, that is impressive. That the willingness and the artistry and the persistence, determination, all those awesome words that definitely apply to those suit actors for sure.
Well, and the thing that makes it even better is that we get multiple kinds of special effects in here. We get the miniatures, we get the suits. We even get, it only happens for one shot for a couple of seconds, but we get stop motion, which was really cool. And here's the nutty thing, and I'm going to make sure I bring this up because I really want to dispel this. There is an urban legend that has circulated for nearly 60 years with this movie, and there are still people who believe it. There is only one ending. There's only one ending. People thought that the Japanese version and the American version had two different endings, where in the American version, it's Kong who wins, and in the Japanese version, it's Godzilla. It's not. It's the same ending in both of them.
Yep.
The thing that's confusing is that despite the fact that the ending is the same, nobody can agree on who actually wins. Not even Toho. Toho keeps changing their mind. Yeah,
King
for
Kong
years they said,
away, so it's obvious.
That's what I mean.
King Kong wins. I mean,
except some people say that's Kong retreating.
No, he's going back home because Godzilla never surfaces. The fight's over.
Yeah,
He's down.
But Godzilla can hide in water because he's amphibious. So I mean, people just go nuts with it. Toho, I think, for years said King Kong won. Now they're trying to say it's a tie. I'm like, I've given up. All right,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. As much as I love Godzilla, I gotta give the W to Kong in this one.
Yeah, it's pretty obvious to me too. I mean, I already mentioned I'm on Team Godzilla, but it's obvious to me that King Kong won this one.
Oh, and you can't forget the tree. I mean, I hope that gets referenced in the new movie. I really do.
So speaking of new movie,
tree. What happened with the tree?
Hey,
Kong uproots
a
a tree and tries to stuff it down his throat. It's great.
And,
I think I saw that, but I was like, that's weird. Obviously, you're not going to get that past the rubber part. Like, it looked like it wasn't going down very deep to Godzilla's mouth.
If he had more time, he would have shoved it down there.
He should have.
Like,
maybe
if he was a popsicle stick.
You know what? Maybe
him.
if he was a small King Kong and took just like a
popsicle
stick. Got one of the bones from the Rancor pit, much like Luke Skywalker, and just put it in, like prop his jaw open, and then lightning bolt, like again force powers, lightning bolt right into his mouth, down into his gullet with exploded Godzilla, and you still get the same ending.
Hold it. Are you promoting King Kong to Emperor Kong? Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah,
I guess.
Yeah, Sith Emperor because of the lightning.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Jimmy approves of this, apparently.
I would think so, given his sound affinity there. But regardless, guys, that has nothing to do with my classic maker. My classic maker is actually the first fight I think you both were alluding to with the octopus kaiju. And I just thought it was so amazing.
Udaku!
I was like, whoa, how are they doing this? Like,
Udako, excuse me.
I eventually realized, oh, this must be a real octopus or something because it's just the movements are too fluid and everything.
And it sounded the way it was. I had headphones on. It sounded like that. Oh, it was gross.
Yes.
That was a real octopus. Now, when they got, I think they used a prop when the Kong suit actor was actually interacting with it, obviously. But you want to know a funny story?
Sure.
Oh my gosh. They used 3 octopuses, octopi, whichever plural you prefer, when they were filming this movie. Story has it that Eiji Tsuburaya, who was the special effects director, when they were finished filming for the day with one of them, had one of those octopuses cooked and he ate it for dinner. So.
Nice.
Well, you don't want to go to
So they can't put the little disclaimer at the end of the movie that says no animals were harmed in the filming of this motion picture because it was definitely harmed. But how many people can say that they literally ate one of their special effects?
Wow. Not many. Though, did they even have that issue back then? I don't think they did back in the 60s.
Probably not.
Oh, yeah. No, they didn't. Well, I don't think they did, but they could never get away with that now.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, totally.
Or the blackface. But anyway, let's hope they don't.
Oh, the Islanders?
Let's hope cancel culture doesn't get a hold of this.
These Islanders look very Japanese, but okay, whatever. I'll go with it. So I just really appreciated that they used a practical effect like that, even though the blue screen wasn't great. It could tell when it was like villagers filmed on something else versus Godzilla or versus King Kong or when the octopus had like a toy figure in its tentacles and stuff. But all that aside, for the time, I was impressed with it. So that was my classic maker for King Kong vs. Godzilla. And now we can. Oh, darn it! Every single time, you'd think I'd put in my notes or something to, hey, don't forget, there's one more thing you like, and that would be Helix Reviews. David Arrington is the host of the Helix Reviews podcast. In every episode, he breaks down what he does and doesn't like about the movies, video games, or comics he's reviewing, and also discusses themes, messages, and ideas they portray. You can find Helix Reviews on your favorite podcast catcher or at helixreviews.blogspot.com.
I like the music in the background.
Oh, okay. That's nice.
But what does that have to do with King Kong versus Godzilla?
Well, he's covered the 2014 Godzilla on his podcast. So there you go.
Okay, that's half of it. And I guess I have to helix the rest of it together.
Did he do Kong Skull Island? There.
not that I know of. Didn't come up in the search, so I don't think so.
All right. It's okay. We can work with weak connections around here.
Thank you, guys. It's at least something better than nothing, like last week, Paul. So, but I assume you still want some trivia about King Kong vs. Godzilla.
That was a funny joke.
Okay, well,
last week we didn't even have a podcast.
You know what I mean. But now I will say, our awesome guest Nathan already sort of mentioned this, so this is sort of a repeat. So I guess you all do realize this at this point, but I'm going to say it anyway. Did you all realize that this film marks a number of firsts for King Kong and Godzilla films? This film blown away. This film was the first time either King Kong and Godzilla were filmed in color, and the first time either of them filmed in widescreen. And this film was also the third film for both King Kong and Godzilla, although this film isn't considered a sequel to the original King Kong or Son of Kong, because like you were saying, Nathan, this is sort of out of canon for King Kong films. It's not the same one, it's a reimagining. But my question to you is, both of you, what is the first kaiju movie you remember seeing?
Okay, I got a technical question. Is the blob considered a kaiju?
I
would say
yes. Just giant monster. So
then the
I
blob,
guess.
yeah.
Okay,
black
which?
and white
Well,
blob.
Black and white blob.
I don't. Maybe I brought this up the last time I was here, but the word kaiju in Japanese translates as strange beast.
Oh,
and it's
strange beast.
Dai Kaiju that is supposed to be large strange beast. But people just say kaiju as a catch-all, basically.
And
so
that blob
I would
was
say,
a beast.
yes. I would argue the blob counts. And we do have
All
a bit of the blob in a bucket here on the island. So,
Yeah. There you go.
How about for you, Nathan?
that's a little bit difficult because I've racked my brain to try to figure out if I saw any kaiju movies technically before I saw my first Godzilla movie. But since I'm not 100% sure, I just tell people my first Godzilla film is the first kaiju film for me, which was Terror of Mechagodzilla, which I caught, I think, the second half of it on cable because I grew up without cable, but Grandma had cable, and I happened to be there, and I believe it was WGN, which is based out of Chicago, and they were doing a thing called Oh My Godzilla Weekend. So, yes, that joke existed before King of the Monsters 2019. And like I said, I caught the second half of it, and it sparked a curiosity in me, and I immediately started trying to find as many of those movies as I could.
Very, very cool. That's awesome.
How about you, Francisco? Do you remember?
Well, so there's a dinosaur. I guess dinosaur movies don't really count as kaiju then, because they're
Jurassic
Depends
Park.
on the movie.
not Jurassic Park. Paul. No, there's this film where these people find like a baby brontosaurus, and they're trying to
baby.
keep them from.
Yeah, it's called Baby.
Is that an actual movie? Okay, so
It's,
I am remembering this.
it's called, it's like it has a long subtitle, but it's like Baby Legend of the something. I can't remember. I may have seen it as a child, but I don't remember a whole lot of it.
Okay, so if you count that, then that. But I would actually say probably more like Empire Strikes Back with a big thing that's coming out of the asteroid to eat the Millennium Falcon.
Oh.
Yeah, that thing has a name, but I can't remember
Yeah,
it
yeah.
offhand.
It's probably something silly.
That
And,
might-
I mean,
well,
the
if that
Rain
counts,
Corps
then
may
that's
as-
probably mine.
Yeah, the Rain Corps may as well count too. If that's the case, then it is. It would be the Star Wars movies for me. 'Cause I
There
was
you
seeing those before I got into Godzilla.
Yeah. Well, you're welcome, guys. You're welcome for me helping you drill down.
But Francisco, nothing stops the blob.
Actually, correction, and be glad I'm doing it and not Jimmy. It's nothing moves the blob.
Oh man. Paul.
Don't worry, I got it wrong
arcade,
for
it says
years
nothing
too, and then I
stops the
played the game
blob.
again.
Really?
Does he say that in the video game though? Nothing stops the
Yeah,
blob?
that's what I mean. That's where where I heard it. He says
okay.
nothing
Yeah.
moves the blob.
I thought it was
Gotcha.
stops. Maybe the arcade version.
I thought
does,
so.
and the-
I
and
thought so for years, but it's not. It's moves.
Anyway, regardless, guys, that's my trivia for you all.
Great trivia, Francisco. And I have our answer to our last audience question, which again was, let us know if you have a favorite Jim Carrey role.
And we got one response for that question, Paul. What is your favorite Jim Carrey role? This comes from Cardinal Paladin. He says, "I would have to say characters he plays in The Mask. Don't say this part. If you read this on air, okay, I won't say the next part, Cardinal. No worries. But thank you so much for sending in your response of The Mask. Yeah, I remember The Mask. I want us to cover that. I feel like that'd be a fun one, though I don't know if it'd be as good as Liar Liar. I feel like that's almost the top, and we've covered Ace Ventura already. But Cardinal, I forget if you're already a 4D fan or not, but if not, you will get a month free of 4D fandom, or if you want to pass that on to someone else, that'd be fine. And thank you so much for sending that in.
Now, here is this episode's listener question. Are you ready? Can you guess what it is? It is also, what is the first kaiju movie you remember seeing?
Whoa,
Send your answers to trivia@retrorewindpodcast.com, or Francisco's supposed to say this line, so he can take it away.
Or yeah, that's fine. But thank you, Paul. Or you can actually, I've started to divide up the show into sort of segments to post on YouTube. So you can also, if you comment on this segment, the trivia segment in our YouTube when you're watching this for the crazy trivia about King Kong versus Godzilla, then we will also look at those. So if you want to get a 4D fan club membership to the Retro Rewind podcast, which gives you a lot of on-screen abilities, you can type commands in chat and make silly things happen on screen, then you can get that for a month.
You give your listeners that much power? Hot dang.
Oh, yeah, we do. Except for podcasts. That's the only time they don't
I was
get
about
it,
to say that. Yeah. Except for right now.
Exactly. But now that you have all had some trivial fun, let's find out what memories you, our awesome rewinders, had about King Kong vs. Godzilla. First up, Drew Dodgen says, monkey fight lizard, monkey win. Also, I like that Godzilla comes from the iceberg he was frozen in. Godzilla raids again.
Mm-hmm.
Kevin Joshua Burnham says, maybe I'll tell you another time.
And another time has come because the Dapper Man says, Kevin Joshua Burnham is crazy. Pay him no mind. He is just jealous his profile picture doesn't have Godzilla with a bow tie. Watch the Japanese version. It makes more sense, and you don't hear annoying foot corn jokes.
Ew. Wardell.
Yeah, that is in the U.S. version.
And Wardell White finishes off with saying, they sure did tear up the town, didn't they? Couldn't take it to a nice clear meadow or something? Nah, they had to tear up the town. At least the big gorilla wasn't waving blondes in the air like he just didn't care. That's all I remember about the flick. Except I remember watching it as an afternoon movie for an old Dallas station, KTVT11. What's up? Now a CBS affiliation. I watched it with a couple of my brothers. Truly all I can remember. Yeah, she wasn't a blonde.
And you know,
I was going to say, he's half right. It wasn't a blonde, but he did grab Mie Hama. I'm just saying.
Referring, I think, to past King Kong films. Like, he was saying it wasn't like those ones where he was grabbing a blonde. Regardless, maybe, you know what, maybe there's not much reason to watch this film. In fact, let's talk about the things we didn't like about King Kong versus Godzilla. Let's get to our worst three things. I will go ahead and start us off by what is the deal with the dubbing? I mean, why? The dubbing on the U.S. submarine Shadow, Sniper, Stingray, I forget what it's called.
Seahawk.
That's what I said. Why did they dub in English over the English speaking? It was so weird.
Okay. Francisco?
Yes.
I'm going to blow your mind.
Okay.
That wasn't dubbed.
Yes, it was. Look at the lips. They do not match.
No, that wasn't dubbed in. In the U.S. version, they dub over them because the American acting is terrible.
Yes, that's true. I was about to say that. Yes.
Wait, hold on. Yes. Hold on. They're not dubbed, but they are dubbed. Now I'm very confused.
No.
Okay.
In the Japanese version,
it's not. Those are the actors' actual voices. They may have done some ADR. That might have been the issue. But those are the actual actors' voices. In the U.S. version, they not only dubbed over the Japanese actors with English, but they thought the American actors' performances were so bad that they just re-recorded their lines with new actors.
And it sounded better.
It did sound better. So here's what you need to do. We need a supercut. We need a supercut of the just the American portion of the USSS Stingray Annapolis to have in the Japanese version of King Kong vs. Godzilla.
Like I said, it's not much better, and you would be asking, why did they dub over the English? Because it's even worse without it.
It's just so I don't get it. It's I guess okay, bad ADR,
I love how one of the midshipmen or whatever, the guy who's got the headphones on and is listening to things, he has this weird kind of pseudo southern drawl. It's really strange.
Yes. I thought it was great.
In the Japanese, he does not sound like that in the US version.
Yeah.
Wow. Anyway, also, that submarine looked like there's way too much room in the command center. It just seemed like
what is this, a studio set?
Exactly.
You're just like, Francisco's all like, that submarine is too spacious. 1 star.
Hey, come on. We
What
got
is
to be
this, a
realistic in
submarine
this
for kaijus.
giant monster movie.
I can accept a 150-foot tall fire-breathing lizard dinosaur thing, but that submarine is too spacious. 1 star.
Hey, there's real. Okay, the giant lizard and giant ape are made up. There are real submarines, so make them look real. Come on. Anyway, that's
Have you been on a submarine?
I've seen pictures. Paul, let's go to you next. What's something you don't like about this film?
This is not much of a like, but it kind of throws me back. The miniatures are obviously miniatures. I will say this with love, though. It looks like exactly if I were to film miniatures and make my own film using miniatures, this is what it would look like. Like when they show and you go to Universal Studios, that's the tank where we filmed the water scene, and that big blue sky is the background. I'm like, how do you make that real? Because if I were to do that, it would look like this movie where you can tell it's a fake backdrop. They're in a tanks of water somewhere.
Yes, exactly.
I don't understand how movies have progressed so far since this was made with their miniatures. But
let me, and I think I brought, and I think I brought this up when I was here for Godzilla 54, but it's less. Well, it's partly advancements in special effects technology, but it's also an illustration of the differences in mindsets for Western and Japanese filmmakers. Mm-hmm. For Westerners, like us, we're used to gauging special effects by how real they look, but Japanese filmmakers, even to this day, aren't striving for realism. They're striving for having striking images. They want it to look good. They don't care what they have to do. They don't care if it looks real, so to speak. They just want it to look striking.
And if it's within their budget.
Yeah, also, they the Japanese film industry is much smaller than Hollywood, so they don't get to play with as much money.
These models are way better than models I could create.
Oh, yeah, totally. Wait, Paul.
Well, that's because Eiji Tsuburaya was a craftsman.
Of order, Paul. You said this would look like something you would make, but if you can't make models that good, this would look better than what you could
film.
Make.
I meant making, if I were to film, if you made these and I were to film it.
Okay, I wouldn't be able to make these.
Okay, it's a good thing you clarified, because I saw Jimmy reaching for a button to interrupt, because he has to interrupt the master interrupter.
Yeah, I mean, you gotta do that. Anyway, let's go to you now, Nathan. What's something? I mean, you love a lot of these Godzilla movies, but was there something you didn't like about this film?
Well, we've already covered one of them, actually, so I'm just going to move on to one of my other, because I had 3 candidates, so I'm going to move on to one of my my other ones, since we already talked about the terrible American acting. And that is, and I will admit this could be potentially controversial because it has been used as fuel for controversy, and that is
Fukuberry.
The tanned Asian actors.
Oh,
who play the Islanders. Yeah, because it's supposed to be a Polynesian actor. It's supposed to be a Polynesian island.
Oh,
I'm going to say there's few, if none, Polynesian actors, especially in early 1960s Japan. So Toho's solution was to basically give their actors spray tans.
Yep.
And there are some people who look at that now and think it's racist. I have even heard a few people go so far as to basically call it blackface. And I'm not, I don't care either. It's not one of my worst 3 because I think it's racist. It's one of my worst 3 because I'm sick of the controversy.
Oh,
because for me, it's a non-issue.
Yeah, same here.
Yeah, it doesn't bother me, especially since I figured, that during that time and a foreign movie, that's not of utmost paramount or concern, and it probably wouldn't be budgetarily feasible to do anyway. I mean, today you could just CG them and you won't have to worry about it.
Well, that would still probably be considered problematic. Really, they did it for practical reasons. It wasn't because they were trying to be racist. They're just like, well, we need these people to look Polynesian. We don't have any Polynesian actors. What do we do? So,
okay, guys, let's go through. Let's do another thing. A couple other things. Well, 3 other things we dislike. One a piece, so to speak. And I'll go ahead and start for me. And this is another thing that's like, what? So, what is the deal with the ending? I don't know if it's the mayor or if he's someone. He seems like someone in the government.
He's a scientist.
The scientist.
He's a scientist.
He says we must learn how to treat plants and animals. Well, I'm like, what are you talking about? What's that have to do with it? Godzilla and King Kong? Because they're saying, what do you think? Who do you think? Do you think Godzilla survived or something? And it was like. And then it says that.
Know. Ask the captain. He'll open up this episode with it.
Okay. It's a little goofy, but I'm going to tell you right now, having seen every Godzilla movie, I have seen much sillier moralizing at the end of one.
Yeah, I was about to say that's a pretty legit other moral because it depends. It's all a lot of the Godzilla films have the same theme about protecting the earth, and it's when we don't and we upset nature's balance that we get problems like this. So things like the plants and the animals are part of that.
And but just to illustrate my point, the so-called moral of Godzilla versus Space Godzilla is no joke, don't pollute space.
There you go.
Well, that's important. But I wish there was something along the way, something to see that this was the moral. It didn't make a lot of sense. It wasn't like if King Kong used plants or something to do with Godzilla, or Godzilla was destroying other plants or animals.
Version.
Oh, gosh. So it just or if the reason Godzilla came back was because they were, I don't know, they're destroying, deforesting something. I don't know. Then it would have made a little bit more sense. But that
would have made a little more sense. But they're on a time crunch.
Okay, whatever.
I would love to know what subtitles you were seeing, because I watched this on the Criterion disc on my way here, and I don't remember the subtitles being exactly like that.
Okay, I will bring it right up. Give me 1 second. I don't care if you want to end mode me, but we're gonna watch this together so that you can see what I perceived. Okay, so this is the part I'm talking about. It's in Japanese, but I will pause and read what they're saying in the subtitles that I'm
you did archive.org for this, didn't you?
I don't know what you're talking about.
Okay, that's what I figured.
So is Godzilla dead? Well, do you think it survived? It's possible. Well, I guess that we, as humans, must change how we treat plants and animals. It's time to learn from them. That's all I have to say. What the junk does that even mean?
Yes, I've seen those subtitles before. The Criterion disc is different.
Oh, okay. Nice. So what's the Criterion say?
I honestly don't remember, but there wasn't anything about treating plants and animals better, so I'm not sure. I don't remember. I just remember it wasn't quite like that.
Okay.
Now I'm curious if my version is the same. Maybe I'm remembering wrong.
Interesting. Okay. Well, if the intro made no sense to you, that's why, because that's the version I saw, and it flummoxed me so much. I'm like, let's make this the intro. No, that sounds good. Anyway,
I'm just happy that you used the word flummox.
I try. All right. So now that we're done with my zaniness of like weird subtitles, let's go to Paul next. What's something you didn't like about something else you didn't like about King Kong versus Godzilla?
Okay, and this is kind of a little annoying while watching. Sometimes Godzilla looks really cool, and then sometimes he looks like he's gained a little weight, like he's has a chubster. The thing is, I understand you have different suits depending on what's going on. But can we make them a little more consistent? Like, you don't have like, oh, this is Godzilla when he's on a diet and this one is when he's not. And then the same thing goes with the King Kong. Like, I understand the claymation in it. Like, oh, you want to show expressive eyes. By the time you put into creating the eyes, like expressive and claymating it and then doing it frame by frame, the time and money spent that, just make the suit that the guy's wearing to, like, be able to close eyes and everything. Like, let's be consistent.
They did.
Well, then why am I watching claymation and not a monster suit?
It was probably a puppet for the head when they did the close-ups.
Well, let's do it all
did
the
look
same
more like a
one.
puppet. Yes, I agree.
That's fine, but let's use it all in the same thing. Like, let's make it consistent.
Would you
At least
stop?
look consistent.
Would you stop tiptoeing around my tragic maker, please, Paul?
Sure. Okay, I'll stop.
Nathan, what's something you didn't like about this film?
Well, it's actually something that I don't know, considering that you got where you guys watched it. It may not be an issue for you, depending on their source. But the one that I had was there is inconsistent film quality. I'm talking about the film stock, because there are times
totally
where
noticed
it will
that on
look
the version I
nicer
watched.
than other. Yeah, there are sometimes it will look nicer than other ones. Unfortunately, King Kong versus Godzilla, despite being the massive hit that it was notorious for many years for its poor preservation. Yeah, there was a point in the 70s, early 70s, where Toho was taking a lot of their older films from the 60s and then editing them down for what was called the Champion Film Festival, which was for children. So they cut the movies down a little bit more, and Honda did this for King Kong versus Godzilla. I think he chopped it down to about like 74 minutes, somewhere around there. Yeah. The problem was that, and that was from the original 35 millimeter. So that was preserved pretty well, but the parts that he had taken out were not preserved, and then they had to later on be spliced back in with 16 millimeter films, which is why when you're looking at it, it won't. There are points where you can see when the edits happen when they're splicing it back in, because the film quality drops down. Here's the annoying, and since that was the only version that was available that was released on home media in Japan, specifically on Laserdisc. Here's the annoying thing. The movie got completely remastered in 2016, but Toho has not released that outside of Japan. And what is on the big Criterion collection, which is one of the several big reasons why the set got middling reviews from a lot of people in the kaiju fandom, is they gave them the Laserdisc version and kept the best looking one to themselves.
So I'm sure that's the one Paul has, though, the import. Like Bex Redeemed Otaku here in chat says, and Paul got the Steelbook Director's Cut extended release special edition, signed, sealed, and delivered by Honda himself. Must have been.
And it's signed by Taco.
Wow.
Is it actually?
That's impressive. I mean, did you have to perform some necromancy to do that? Because, so it was zombie Honda? That's impressive.
No, it was $8.99 on eBay.
$899.
No, I don't remember.
Wow.
I did get it online, but I don't remember how much.
Oh, okay.
But anyway.
Just being silly with your import. Anyway, well, guys, let's get into the things we hated most about King Kong vs. Godzilla. And let's start with Nathan, because I'm very curious, loving on so many kaiju movies, Godzilla movies. What do you hate most about this in particular one?
Well, you guys have kind of hinted at it already. That freaking Kong suit.
Well, that's mine. Okay, Paul, real quick, is that yours?
No, it's not mine.
Okay, so me and Paul.
That is my tragic maker.
Yes.
That is my tragic maker. That Kong suit, the Godzilla suit looks great. That Kong suit looks terrible.
Yeah,
no, I'm sorry. Compared to the Kong suit, the Godzilla suit looks great.
Oh,
that Kong suit looks
version.
Yeah,
that Kong suit looks like a really dirty shag carpet that they just slapped a monkey face on. I mean, it looks awful, and it looks even worse when it's wet. It looks truly horrible when it's wet.
You know what?
I don't know what it is.
When the octopus was like on top of him and it would made his face all wet and stuff, and then I was like, oh, that's disgusting, and then it changed and all of a sudden he's dry, and I was about to like argue against that, like continuity, but like, oh wait, it looks better dry, never mind.
I'm telling you, I don't know what it is. Eiji Tsuburaya was a special effects genius, but he couldn't make a good ape suit to save his life. I don't know what, because he tried several times. including another King Kong movie called King Kong Escapes, and it still looks. He made a whole new suit, and it's only marginally better.
I mean, and
it's just I don't know what it is. I really don't. And to this day, Kong fans hate this suit. They really do. Which is the one thing I am not the biggest fan of the 1976 remake of King Kong, but I will say this: they did a man in a suit for Kong in that, and it looks great. It really does. And they actually used
like 10 years later, right?
Well, yeah, it was like 15 years later. They did actually, Rick Baker was the guy in the suit for that. And one of the cool things about that is they actually set the mask up so that it was his actual eyes and not prosthetic eyes.
Oh, good. Yeah.
So it is a marked improvement over this.
Yeah.
So it's a creepy monkey suit.
And you mentioned
ape suit.
the shag carpet effect. I feel like
you caught yourself before Jimmy did.
Overall, I think that could have been saved. The overall body could have been saved. The face didn't look like something that just got whacked with the ugly stick so many times. It just looks. It didn't look apish. It looked like clay. Like Clayface was having an off day and decided to sprout some hair. That's what it looked like. It was just.
Oh man, I wish I could do a screen share so that I could show you guys. I'm technically breaking character now, I just realized, but I wish you guys could look up I wish you guys could look up the suit from King Kong Escapes because it's only a little bit better.
Oh, we can do that. We can look that up.
Francisco can. He has the magic.
While I'm doing that, let's see, Paul, why don't you talk to us about so it wasn't the King Kong suit. What was your tragic maker for this film?
The thing that took me out of the movie the most, and this is something that we already talked about, was the acting. It was so exaggerated by the Japanese actors versus so underplayed by the American actors. It was hard to find a tone, but even with the Japanese acting, it was so over the top and cartoony. I know they try to ground it in like real life, like drama, what's going on, but the acting just was so cartoony. It would not have surprised me if they inflated both King Kong and Godzilla with helium to move them instead of the balloons. I mean, that's just how over the top it seemed. But
that was the point. I told you, it's a satire.
Yeah.
So yes, that's the suit in King Kong Escapes.
So not much different.
Oh, it's different, but it's just only marginally better.
It's bulkier, yeah.
The face is better, but it's also more cartoony.
Yeah, I was about to say that. Yeah, it looks more. Claymate,
It looks like it. I don't know what to say. It just looks strange. It looks like a mask. It doesn't look real at all. That's I think
what it looks like. It looks like it's part of the Uncanny Valley, but in a claymation format, rather than digital.
Wow. Yes, Jimmy, I know you're fond of that one because of Mechanicong. You rebuilt the sucker. Yes, we know.
That's funny.
But I will say tonally for the acting, watching the dubbed version of the American version, that's way over the top, and it's actually consistent throughout the film. So,
okay.
And that part, it's kind of fun I actually like to have that on the background sometimes. The American dubbed version, just because it's so over the top.
Oh wow.
Yeah. But overall, the movie is better Japanese wise. They take it a little more seriously.
I will say though, Paul, that none except for Taco, none of the characters were memorable for me. I mean, I could care less about any of them.
What about the animal and trees guy? I mean, he was like the serious one.
No, I don't. I barely remember him. So
in defense of this movie, Taco is so over the top that he kind of overshadows everybody else.
What about the island translator? Do you remember him?
Oh yeah, kind of a little bit.
Okay, yeah, that guy reminds me of Don Knotts. He's like a Japanese Don Knotts. Seriously.
Oh, you know which character stood out to me a lot? That kid that wouldn't say hey to his mom, that was calling him over and over again. No, he's just going to go get the magic liquid to put the guy to sleep. I'm not going to listen to my mom.
The little island boy?
Yeah, when I'm in trouble. No. Oh, my gosh. Yeah, and if you have a bingo
so there's
card
a
out,
lesson.
yes,
There's a
that's
lesson
disobedient child right there. There you go.
I was going to say, there's a lesson for the kids watching the movie. Obey your mother, or the octopus will eat you.
Yeah,
Exactly.
and,
Good.
and smoking is okay with your mom.
Oh my gosh.
Actually, I thought that was funny. Again,
Yeah.
part of the satire, especially since they use the radio and they freak out over the radio. They're like, "What is the magic box?"
Right. Exactly. Anyway, guys, well, now that we've all entered our targeting information into the firing computer, Alice, do you have a firing solution for us?
Firing solution complete. Rating salvo at the ready. On your mark.
That was way too hard.
All right, guys.
Quiet.
Oh, Jimmy says he helped her put this calculation together. So
Well, thank you, Jimmy. Yeah, so let's find out whether we rate King Kong vs. Godzilla a classic. Would recommend anyone go see this film, whether or not they've seen it before. A nostalgic, if you've seen it as a kid or growing up in your youth, it's definitely worth your time to revisit it. But if you've never seen it before, probably just pass. Maybe go see the new Kong vs. Godzilla or Godzilla vs. Kong, wherever it is. Or is this film a tragic? It's not worth anyone's time today, whether or not you've seen it
You say
before.
whatever it is. There's different films. You got to be specific.
No. What?
We are covering King Kong versus Godzilla.
Yeah. What did I say?
Kong versus whatever
I
it is.
know
'cause
that
those are different
you could
movies.
go see that instead. If you,
All right.
if it's nostalgic and you haven't seen this one, go watch one of those instead.
Sorry, I wasn't listening. Continue.
Wow. Or would you rate it a tragic? We'd recommend no one watch this. If you have fond memories of it, don't sully those memories with a rewatch. So let's start with our guest. Nathan, what's your final rating for King Kong versus Godzilla, 1962, Japanese, 1963, United States? But just the Japanese version, since that's the one we're doing.
yes, it's still a classic for me. It's a very important film in the filmographies of both of these monsters. The funny thing is, Kong was actually the more popular one. Godzilla was the new hotness at that point. And because he shared the screen with King Kong, it propelled Godzilla to pop culture stardom and icon.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize this helped.
Yeah. Yeah. And it also, it kind of introduced a new version of Kong into the Japanese market. And there's a couple of movies that came out of this. There's a whole to-do because Toho basically bought the Kong license for 5 years. And during those 5 years, they can make as many movies as they want. Unfortunately, they made a whopping 2.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So because of that, and because it kickstarted not only the I guess you could say careers of these monsters, but it also really solidified the kaiju genre as a viable genre of film and as something that was commercially viable. And it basically ushered in the golden age of kaiju films. And it was, kind of the golden age for Toho because at this point, because they were just cranking stuff out.
Oh, cool. I didn't know that.
Along these lines for several years after this. So it's because of its importance and its influence basically on everything, especially Godzilla and Tokusatsu.
How about the film by itself?
As a film by itself, I still think it works. It's very much a snapshot of Japan at the time. I mentioned before it was a satire of commercialism. Mm-hmm. This was the early 60s. Japan was had just started what has been called the Japanese economic miracle. Their post-war economy was just booming at this point. They spent the latter half of the 40s and most of the 50s recovering, and then it just exploded in the late 50s and into the 60s, and their economy grew exponentially for the next basically almost 30 years. And
all thanks to this film.
Partly. It's definitely, I mean, because it sold as many tickets as it is. It's definitely indicative of it. But this was satirizing all of the stuff that came with this newfound prosperity, kind of pointing out, it's like, yeah, this is wonderful, but there are some drawbacks to it. So it's a social commentary on current events at the time. And I still think its satire is relevant today and really doesn't just have to be applied to Japan. The sort of stuff that we're seeing in this movie, we see all the time now, just in a slightly different form.
Yeah, I see it so much. I didn't even realize it was satire because it's the norm.
Oh, yeah, there you go.
Well, that's kind of how satire works. It's close to being just, to being real that it becomes funny because of it.
Oh.
And also, Paul, what is your final rating for King Kong vs. Godzilla?
So I teetered between tragic and nostalgic, and I was surprised because it had been a while since I'd seen this. I said I had it on the background every so often, but it had actually been at least 10 years since I've done that. So I was surprised how well I liked it. So not as much as the kaiju academic Martian just alluded to. But I wish it is nostalgic. I just wish I could say it's on the higher end of nostalgic, rather than on the lower.
We don't
end.
have grades.
Well, I will say I can agree with you in one aspect, and that is that I would probably, because I grew up on the US version, I would probably rate the US version nostalgic.
Yeah. There you go.
Okay, so we have a classic and nostalgic. Man, guys, I am so torn.
What do you mean?
I swear.
Maybe you should rewatch it this time and actually watch it instead of fall asleep.
Go buy the Criterion Collection and see the proper subtitles.
There you go.
Here's the thing. If there's so many things that could have made this movie like exponentially better, the first of which Kong looking anything more like an actual ape would have just, this would, honestly, I feel like this would be classic for sure if he looked better. Because there's
just imagine it, and there you go.
Wow. Okay. Let me just imagine that the first half of Jurassic Park is rip roaring fun.
There you go. Or that 2001 is actually Star Wars.
Yeah. Oh wow, Luke. I can't. The monolith. I'm so sad for you. A lot of me wants to rate this nostalgic because I feel like I would want to give it another chance and watch it again and see what it's like. But it's like, do I really want to put myself through watching that ugly King Kong again?
Yeah.
I don't.
He's hardly on the screen. Both of them.
And also, what's up with the clicky sound when he goes click, 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 Godzilla? Every time it's like click, click, click. It's that's such a weird.
What, when he's punching him?
No, when Godzilla goes like this, when he's like a taunting. Yeah, it's like a weird.
When he's kind of
nails.
clapping his hands together.
Like, just make it big sound or no sound. I'm so done with click, click, click. He's a big kaiju. She'd be like, crash, crash.
Things really have to be particular in your life to enjoy it, huh?
I'm definitely getting that impression. Yes.
No clicky noises and no funny looking monkeys or apes.
He's basically a nitpicky gatekeeper. I see how this works. Yeah.
I want things to be the
tragic.
best. I want things to be the best versions that they can, and this didn't get there. So I'm gonna have to say tragic. I'm sorry, it's tragic.
This is the 60s,
oh my
buddy.
gosh,
tragic, guys. I'm sorry.
Really?
Let's
leave it. Let's go to the listeners.
It's on the higher end of tragic there, Paul. You like that?
What does that mean? Does that
so
mean
wait. Hold on. How does this final score going to work then? Because you got one classic, one nostalgic, and one tragic. Does this make it break even so it's nostalgic?
I think we'll have to just be like, you know what, Captain gets final say on this, I think.
We go to our patrons.
We go to our patrons. People that donate at the or support us at the $5 or higher level are part of the Rewind Republic. So they'll get to we'll combine their votes, and whatever vote they pick will sort of sway the vote to whether it's a classic, nostalgic, or tragic. So we'll find out what they voted now and what our final rating is right now, with Francisco from the future. Francisco from the future here. And according to our patrons, thank you, Rewind Republic patrons, they voted that King Kong vs. Godzilla is a nostalgic film. So when all the votes are in, that makes, according to the Retro Rewind podcast, King Kong vs. Godzilla is a nostalgic, highly disputed nostalgic film. We recommend, if you saw this as a kid or in the past and have good memories of it, definitely it's worth rewatching. Otherwise, go watch maybe the new one that's coming out or some other Godzilla and or King Kong version. All right, back to Francisco and crew from the past. Whoa. Oh my goodness. I can't. Seriously, really, guys, patrons, really?
I mean, did you guys even watch the movie to give it a fair chance? But okay, let's go with it.
I guess we'll have to go with it.
All right.
Okay, well, thank you so much, patrons. And yeah, that was quite the experience. But now it's time to get back to our own time, good old 20XX.
20XX? And you're welcome for the experience, by the way.
Receiving incoming transmission.
Because this was my...
Feels good to be back, but we wouldn't have been able to travel back to 1962 to begin with if it weren't for our amazing reflux capacitors, namely Jared Holzhauer, Deborah Powers, Brian Keating, Patrick Hicks, LJ Lowry, Chris Cowan, the Film Podcast, Chris Owens, Geek Devotions, The Untold Podcast, Mrs. Lomax, James Kennison, I ran out of air, Drew of the Cellcast, Ashley Cronenbitter, Pastor Dustin, Kennethan, Redeemed Utaku, Ryan Lingle, That's Our Babo, Josh Adams, D. Tungsten, Andy Lewis, and Jeff, in addition to five other awesome patrons as well. I was totally doing the cops.
I was trying to input that in there.
Roll call. Thank you all so much for keeping the gigawatts coming. And if you want to help keep us flying for as low as $1 a month or $5 if you want to vote on movies like this where we're tied, then get bonus content for your generosity, head over to retrorewindpodcast.com/support to help us grow via Patreon, Subscribestar, or PayPal.
Also,
this stream is sponsored by PaulJPowers.com.
And while we're thanking our supporters, we want to give a big kaiju hug to Nathan for supporting us with his thoughts about King Kong versus Godzilla, the Japanese version, and NASA Jimmy from NASA. Thank you so much for... Yes, of course. That goes without saying almost, but I'm glad you said it. I wouldn't. But thank you, Nathan.
It's been a pleasure. Is it so it's not a bear hug, it's like gorilla grip? Is that what?
No, it's a clicky nail hug, apparently. Click, click, click.
Yeah. It really charges my back up. Anyway, Nathan, where can people find you online? Is there anything else you'd like to promote to let the people know about?
Well, one thing I definitely should let everybody know about is not only am I a podcaster, I am also a writer, and I have a new book out. Woo-hoo. It's called Zorzum and the God Who Devours. So, we've had a little bit of fun talking about Schwarzenegger. So this is a very Conan the Barbarian sort of a story. But I'm going to say this now.
Okay.
Zorzum is a barbarian cooler than Conan. There, I said it. But I co-wrote
right there.
I co-wrote this with my friends Nick Hayden and Aaron Brosman. It's a fantastic story. It's really fun. Sword and sorcery. It's only about maybe 100 pages or so you can breeze through it pretty nice. So I highly recommend checking it out. You can get it in both digital and paperback on Amazon.
Nice.
So that's really cool. And I'm hoping to actually have another book out later this year. It'll be a devotional book that I'm working on with several people, including at least one person who's in the chat right now. So
nice.
Yes.
What was the name of the book again?
The second one?
No, the one that's released
the first
out
one? Zorzum and the God Who Devours.
How do you spell Zorzum?
Zorsam.
See, I would have been Zorzum. So, okay. Thank you for spelling it.
Yeah, Zorzum. Yeah, see, if I have to enunciate like a Brit for you, that's okay.
Oh my gosh. Well, thank you.
But no,
again
so
much,
that's
Nate.
so that's one thing I want to promote. And then obviously, since I'm talking about myself as a writer, you can check out my author website, which is nathanjsmarchand.com. Yes, I had to use my two middle initials because nathanmarchand.com was already taken. I'm going to find that guy and I'm going to feed him to that giant octopus. So
Good.
And
Yes.
take the guy who stole paulpowers.com as well.
Oh my gosh.
yes, well, we're going to find him together. Both of those guys together, man. We're gonna.
Yeah. I actually found my guy. He's a little too tough to take on.
Oh.
Oh,
Yeah,
I'm sure. I'm sure.
RetroRewind.com is too expensive. So, yeah.
Oh, apparently. But anyway, so there's that. And then if you want to follow me as an author on Twitter or on Facebook, my professional Facebook page is the Worlds of Nathan Marchand. My author Twitter is at Nathan Marchand 7. As for the podcast website is monsterislandfilmvault.com. We're also on Twitter, which is at the Monster Isla 1, and then there are several associated accounts that I should probably mention, including yours, Jimmy. Yes. Yeah. Follow Jimmy, my intrepid producer, at NASA Jimmy. And then there's also my Orwellian overlords, the Monster Island Board of Directors. Their handle is Monster Isla BOD, because I guess they love their bod. And then there's also Raymond Martin, who is basically the board's lawyer. You can follow him at MIFE_legal team. And then there is, yes, this is a thing that exists. I have a pseudo-sister clone. She is a magical girl in the style of anime. Bex knows all about her. They're best friends, practically. And she now has a Twitter. Yeah, she now has a Twitter. Her handle is at CrystalLadyJess1. And I think I got everything. Also, the podcast is on Facebook and on Instagram. That's all the important stuff.
Fantastic. That's all the
Fulfilled
important
your
stuff.
legal obligations. Good job.
Yes, I have fulfilled my contractual obligation, so now I won't get shot into space.
Well, that's always a good thing. Thank you so much, Nathan, for being on this show. And a hearty thanks also to those of you listening for the first time. And of course, all of you who are a part of our Rad Rewinder community. You all who watch us live every week, whether we are recording this podcast or I'm playing a retro game, are an amazing group of people helping sustain the pod, Team Womps aside. But if you are looking for ways to get involved in growing this Retro Rewind endeavor, reach out to us on social media, where we are at Retro Rewind Pod pretty much everywhere. You could buy some of our merch, including hashtag Team Womp shirts. You could leave us a review on Podchaser or Apple Podcasts, become a monthly patron, or simply just share your favorite episodes of the podcast with a friend so that more people can enjoy the content of the Retro Rewind Pod.
You have been listening to RetroRewindPodcast.com/222, our review of King Kong vs. Godzilla, with me as your XO, PaulJPowers.com. You can find me online and all my socials at PaulJPowers.com.
Whoa, who would have guessed? Thank you for being an amazing friend, amazing kaiju. I mean, not kaiju. Your normal size, not strange beast. For another,
my own way.
I guess that's true. But thank you for being,
Unless you watch Pacific Rim the Black, where those kind of blend together. I'm just saying.
Oh, interesting. But thank you for being an amazing friend, Paul. It's been an awesome, fun voyage to Kaiju Island, Kaiju verse here. I have been and continue to be captain of the pod, Francisco Ruiz. Find me on Twitter at FX. Oh my gosh, what's going on?
You can find him on Twitter at FXRetro_, especially if you need to find pixel artwork commissioned.
Thank you, Paul. Yeah, I for some reason I couldn't get it out. That's why you have an awesome friend like Paul to help you when you can't walk yourself. He carries you, and when he can't walk, I say, "Hey, why don't you get a wheelchair?"
Yeah.
Is that why we've been commissioned? Go ahead.
This is why I have Jimmy as my sidekick.
Yeah.
Oh, get over it. You're my sidekick.
And life is better with friends. And we've been commissioned by friends to announce we are part of the Christian Geek Central Network at ChristianGeekCentral.com. Captain, we are on final approach to base, which I've never even been to, but
What?
apparently
Oh, I should take you there sometime.
that has been granted to us. Why? Let's go out and explore more.
All right, I guess we could. Thank you so much, XO. Thank you all for listening. We pray you are more joyful now than when you first hit play. But like a Pokemon, we got to catch you all for The Parent Trap, another 60s movie, our next episode of the Retro Rewind podcast.
Retro Rewind mission complete. Proceed to nav point Omega and return to base.
You know, they actually make a different Japanese ending and a United States ending. That way it furthers.
I hope so. That'd be amazing.
Actually, I had this crazy idea that what they should do is film two endings. One where Godzilla wins, one where Kong wins, and then send prints with different endings to different theaters just to screw with people.
Yeah. Just like Clue.
So everyone,
like
so
Clue,
people,
exactly.
so half the audience who sees it will go on social media and be like, I can't believe Godzilla won, and then the other half will be like, wait, you're crazy, Kong won, or something like that.
Yeah, you can clearly see
just to watch them all fight. That would be great. It's kind of like Clue. If you ever watch the movie Clue, there's three endings, and they sent different prints with different endings to different theaters.
Exactly. Though I still think it'd be better if King Kong was, his normal size and would just crawled and punched like Godzilla and did all that stuff. Or maybe, you know what? Maybe now that I think about it, maybe King Kong gets shrunk to like man size. Maybe he becomes an archaeologist even. That'd be kind of cool. Huh.
No, it wouldn't.
Do you know any other
That would
archaeologists?
sound as lame as young Indiana Jones.
Then it is something that man was not meant to disturb. Trust me.
Are you making this up as you go along? Yeah?
You don't believe me. You will, Dr. Jones.
Mission accomplished. Full throttle. Those people are trying to kill us. I know, Dad! It's a new experience for me. Happens to me all the time.
Welcome back to another installment of our watch-throughs and reviews of Young Indiana Jones, chapter by chapter, as we make our way through the three of the Indiana Jones movies, because there's only 3 of them. 3,
Not 4, not 5.
not 4, 3. Anyway,
1, 2, 5.
we are on our way. There are 3 lights. We're on our way to The Last Crusade coming up at the end of this year. But right now, what chapter and what chapter of the Indiana Jones Chronicles are we at, Paul?
This time we are watching, we are reviewing chapter 13 called Adventures in the Secret Service. This was actually a combination of 2 different chapters which earlier aired, combining the first episode of season 2, which was titled Austria March 1917, which came out September 21 in 1992. And the 13th episode in season 2, later on called Petrograd July 1917, which was released March 27th in 1993.
Well, very good, Paul.
Do you want to give us the plot synopsis?
I'll give you the plot
both
synopsis.
those episodes
Yeah.
using 1 sentence each.
I'm going to do 1 sentence for both.
Oh, wow.
Indy can't catch a break as a spy. He fails at every turn, apparently. Even though I
What are
think
we
he
going to
does a pretty
do
good
with
job.
you?
Right?
Oh, Magoo, you've done it again.
Essentially, the first half.
Which is sad because Indy's dad is James Bond. I'm just saying.
Right. That's a good point. I didn't think about that. The first half, he's in Austria trying to help, try and get the Austrian king to be a part of the Allies. I don't think they're the Allies in World War I, but
He was signing a treaty so that they were no longer going to be allies with the Germans, I
Yeah,
believe,
something like that.
in order to end the war.
Yeah. And then in the second part...
Because you know what you need in an Indiana Jones adventure? Lots of politics. Apparently, this was George Lucas's warm-up to the prequels.
Yeah.
Calm down, Jimmy. I know Phantom Menace triggers you, okay?
Wow.
You said it.
But that's a good point. I didn't think about that.
It's very good.
And then the second half, Indy's in Russia during the revolution, or what's going to become the revolution.
Bolshevik revolution.
Bolshevik revolution as the Lenin's trying to gain power. And he fails there too, apparently. So let's talk about the things.
You can't stop history. Come on, George. What are you, Tarantino?
Let's talk about, first off, what's the best part of these episodes. Let's start with Nathan. What's the thing you like most about these?
Okay. Just to let everybody know, I absolutely love Indiana Jones.
Okay. And have you ever seen these before?
I have seen some of them. I have not seen this one.
Okay.
So this was a first for me when I saw it. But like I said, I have recollections. I was actually there was a point when my local library actually had the entire DVD collection of these, and I was trying to go through all of them, but I never finished it, unfortunately. Oh. I don't remember what prevented me from doing that, but regardless, going into this, I will say first off, it was cool seeing Indiana Jones having not archaeology related adventures.
Oh, okay.
When I know some of them are like that. These weren't. I will also say the first half was definitely more exciting. Where it's actually, involves going behind enemy lines and sneaking around. Yeah. And there's some political stuff in the middle there, but then we got to sneak back across the border. And then there's actually this climax. It's basically a border crossing. It's kind of hilarious where he's like, all I have to do is cross the line, man. All I have to do is cross the line. And he's running across the train and he's getting shot at. So there's exciting things happening. Yeah. You get none of that in the second one.
That's true.
It's a lot of talking, a lot of drama, a lot of this woman hitting on Indiana Jones, and all I kept thinking was, lady, you're not marrying. Don't even bother.
Which I thought she looked a little bit like her, and I thought they were going to try to set.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Marion is not a commie, all right?
Well, yeah.
Well, was she though?
I don't think she was.
No, she's out. I was about to say she's out in the Eastern world compared to us living in the Western world. I forget where though. Yeah. But anyway, yeah.
Oh, she's in Tibet. Are we talking about Marion? Isn't Marion in Nepal or Tibet?
Somewhere.
Yes,
I don't know.
But that was just at that point. That was only at that point. We don't know what she was doing before that.
That's true. She could be in
point
anywhere,
regardless. But you liked the sort of the excitement and that he wasn't doing archaeology in these episodes.
Yeah,
or at least the excitement
excitement in the first half.
Yeah. I do kind of like that he was, even though the second half wasn't exciting, I do like that he was doing sort of cryptography, which I was like, Indy doesn't do this. Oh, wait, he does that in Last Crusade. He's like figuring out all these clues and stuff. So never mind.
I was about to say.
Although I have to.
With an I.
Yeah. Although I have to admit, I was a little bit confused when this thing started because I'm like, was there something that carried over from the previous one? Because I don't understand the context of what's going on. Why is he in France? What is he doing here? I had to piece it together because I'm like, I feel like I missed something. But looking into it a little bit, I can't tell if there was anything that would have given me any sort of context.
Not really. I mean,
I was about to say yes, but not satisfying.
Yeah. not like to where it's like, oh, now I get why he's doing all these things.
Yeah.
No.
And then then it was also confusing because all of these French guys and the Austrians that he was trying to escort never call him Indy or Mr. Jones or anything like that. That's using a different name, and I'm like, what is going on? I am confused here.
And then they called another guy Henry, and it was another guy spoke up. And I'm like,
just, what is going on? Now, I will say Another reason I liked the first half more is because it had Christopher Lee in it, which I was not expecting.
I wasn't expecting that. I saw his name in the credits. I'm like, really? Christopher Lee? Wow, okay.
Yeah, and that brought a cinematic caliber to this.
Yes.
Yeah, to this. And that's the thing that's really interesting. From what I understand, the show, this Young Indiana Jones show, was pretty popular, but it ended up getting canceled relatively quickly because it was really expensive to produce because they're filming on location.
Exactly.
Yeah, and stuff like that. But you can definitely tell they threw that money onto the screen with this. This is the most cinematic looking 90s television show I think I've ever seen. Yeah, now we take it for granted now because TV is basically made like movies, but nowadays. But back then, you didn't see stuff like this. This felt like a movie. I will say that it felt like a movie. It really did, and including Christopher Lee, I think brought some of that, like cinematic gravitas.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
and you know what made this show look even more cinematic? Was watching it at 2x speed, but we'll maybe talk about that.
Oh no!
I was wondering if you were still doing that.
You cheater! You went back.
I know. Okay, Paul, what's something you liked about Young Indiana Jones?
In this episode, this chapter, I really enjoyed the mystery. Like, okay, who can you trust and who can't you? And even on both episodes. It was like, oh, and what are they? The sneaking around, trying to figure out puzzle solving aspect. I also liked that there was a swing at the end of the second one. There was a swing, and they introed the Young Indiana Jones music. It wasn't the John Williams Indiana Jones music that we love, but at least they incorporated the theme of the Young Indiana Jones into it, which was nice.
Yes, that was. I for me, the thing I liked most about it was, it's weird, but I kind of like that it ended on this very dour note with the after the Cossack
shot.
Yeah, I'm like, because
now, and here's
that's
something
more like history, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, well, here's the thing, because I looked up the timetable on this. This movie, well, that half of the movie takes place in July 1917. The Bolshevik Revolution was in November that year. So it's kind of funny if you know your history when they're saying like, oh, this isn't going to happen. This probably won't happen now. And I'm like,
it was the beginning of the revolution.
It was the beginning of it.
It didn't quite take it. So that makes sense that it happened a few months before then. So that's cool.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing that I will admit, the ending of that second episode, I actually did think was pretty effective because the question that came to my mind was because this episode, that's probably more apt to call it an episode, wants you to be sympathetic toward these people. But the question I was asking myself is, are we to sympathize with them because they're revolutionaries or because they were fools and tried to start their revolution too soon?
Or his friends. So maybe it's a mixture of all of them.
I feel like because it's friends, but...
Yeah, because see, that's the thing that I was once I realized, okay, we're gonna be going to Russia, 1917. We're gonna actually have Lenin in this, and I'm like, this is going to be really interesting to see what their attitude is about this, because I don't think it's not pro-communist for sure. You get the impression that Lenin is making a bunch of promises. Yeah, you get the impression Lenin's making a bunch of promises that we, knowing history, know are not going to come about.
Right.
So there's that level of tragedy here, and Indy doesn't seem to be very happy about it because he's a good American.
But what I thought they did was a great job of showing to us on the Western side, how can someone, Vladimir Lenin lead a nation of people in this direction? Why would they follow him? But I thought they did a great job of showing how charismatic and persuasive he could be using those ideals.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, and you could totally see how everyone in the audience and stuff was captured by what he was saying, and it's one of those things that I almost wish there was more time to like go into the philosophies of it, because on its face, communism has so much of it seems right. It sounds right. It seems like if everyone could just it'd be
In a
great for
utopian
everyone.
society,
Exactly.
yes.
But it totally forgets to look at the heart of man and how we are what's the verse? Our hearts are deceived.
The heart is is deceptively wicked or something like that. Yeah, it's in Isaiah.
Yeah. Okay. Excuse me.
Or is that Isaiah? Or no, wait, now I'm thinking it's either Isaiah or Jeremiah. Now I can't.
Okay, we're not.
It's in the Bible.
It's in the Bible.
I'm gonna look it up because now.
Which is interesting that you bring that up because there's a conversation. I actually really like this scene, as unexciting as that episode was by comparison. The scene where the revolutionary girl and this other guy are talking, and she's talking about all of these communist ideals that she's been hearing from Lenin, and this guy's arguing. He's like, you can't, people like H.G. Wells and all these authors and all that, they're advocating for creating paradise on earth. He said, you can't do that. That's the domain of God. That it exists only in heaven and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So
I'm glad that they had that.
Yeah, absolutely.
It was a
offered
line,
a count.
Yes.
Well, yeah, kind of, but it offers a counterpoint.
Yeah.
To what she's talking about, and I think that's another one of those reasons why I don't think this episode necessarily comes out as pro-communist.
Yeah, absolutely.
And because there are characters who don't like it, and like Indy. I mean, come on, what a buzzkill is it to be taken on a date on your birthday to a communist rally? I mean, he was clearly not having a good time.
Yeah.
So it was really interesting. It was trying to make more of this because something like this, especially when you're an American, you can easily just distill it down to that it's robbed of any substance. This is the rise of the Soviet Union, and as Americans, we're not supposed to like it. But as we're seeing in this, there was a lot going on.
Yeah, and I feel like it's good to sympathize with people. Like when you just see communism as like a group of people, it's very easy to be tribalistic and be like, well, ours way is better than your ways. But if you can drill it down to an actual person, you can become much more sympathetic and it becomes much more tragic in that regard too, I think. Also,
Hitler, Nazis.
Also, Jeremiah 17:9. It was the verse you got right, Nathan. Yeah, the heart is deceitful above all things and beyond cure. Who can understand it? And that is the NIV version. Wow. Anyway, so I think we all went through the things we liked about this. What didn't we like about this episode, this chapter of Young Indiana Jones? And Nathan, let's start with you again.
I've kind of already mentioned it. The second half of this is not very exciting.
But you just said that one moment was great.
Well, yeah, there's great moments in it. It's just not very exciting. I mean, the first one is an actual adventure, and then this one is I'm trying to be a spy and I'm checking things out, but I'm not really
As slow and boring as the second part is compared to the first one, I actually had more problems with the first one than the second one.
Really? Oh, interesting.
And the fact, like, hey, everybody, okay, you two, remember, we have to pretend like we don't know each other, and then what do? They just huddle around talking to each other, like,
okay. Here's something I want to bring up because I wrote this down in my notes because I thought, I think I know how this is going to happen. So then it kind of makes this one scene just like that. Why did this happen? But that scene when they're riding in the train and they're crossing into Austria and they get stopped at the border and Indy Sims like, hey, make sure, you play it cool and all of that.
Yeah. And what do? They line up right next behind each other.
Yeah. Well, and then one of those brothers gets arrested basically, and then his other brother is like, we have to save him, and he's like, nope, we can't, we just gotta go, we just gotta go. And then he's trying to tell us like, hey,
get on the train.
Get on the train. And he's all like, we're just gonna have to accept the fact that we don't know what's gonna happen to your brother and all that. And then he just walks back in and he's like, hey, they thought I was someone else. I really seriously thought that was foreshadowing that this guy stabbed them in the back and it was going to come back later.
That would have been so much more cool.
Because I'm like, if they're acting like these guys are going to take him away, there's no way that they wouldn't be taking him away unless they were really suspicious. Indy even made it sound like, it's like, you know what the difference is between what was it, like the Austrians and other people's, like they just shoot you, It's, and stuff like that. And then so it's like all this buildup, and then nothing's like,
well,
okay,
that's what
he's
I
in
like
cahoots
about
with them.
it. It's like who can you trust and who can you can't trust? Yeah, that train took off and all of a sudden he's on it. Like, how did he quickly get out of that? Like, get on his papers, But I thought the same thing. I thought, oh, he's in cahoots with the bad guys. You can't trust him. Now, can you trust the brother? And then there's this other woman. Oh, she's like, oh, I knew that was a fake out. Like, that's gotta be. But I didn't. I thought their person contact was going to be another woman, not that woman. But that was funny.
Oh yeah, that made me laugh a little bit. Schultz. I thought of Hogan's Heroes, and actually my college dorm. I stayed in a dorm called Schultz Hall. So
there you go. Also, I didn't like there were so many gunshots. Mostly in the first episode that
missed
doesn't get hit.
Stormtrooper camp. These people are going to.
Yeah,
I was gonna say this is a George Lucas property,
which I will say I did like. There were a couple lines. They've been doing this in past couple chapters. Well, they'll throw in. I have a bad feeling.
Yes.
About this. They'll come.
Yeah. What an incredible new smell you discovered.
Yes, that was another Star Wars line that they incorporated in this one. Which
okay, but can someone tell me the villain that we kept seeing? He never talks. And all of that. Can someone tell me what was going on with him? I just wrote down in my notes, who the heck is evil Winston Churchill?
No. This is so here's his backstory, guys. He got tired of making skates for Emilio Estevez. He's like, I gotta get out of here. And I gotta go over to Austria and run a criminal organization. But before that, he actually ran a criminal organization, Lethal Weapon 2. But we forget about that.
So what you're saying is this poor actor has been typecast as a villain for his entire career.
Well, not
Got
in
it.
Mighty Ducks, but and was he a villain in Hunt for Red October? I thought he was.
No, he wasn't that. He was the ambassador for for Russia to the United States.
But he was the main villain in Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey. So maybe in the
was
future,
he?
at
I
the end,
forgot that.
yeah, he was the main.
So he
guy.
is diplomat.
Yeah.
He is diplomat for Mother Russia.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. Which
But
is funny
anyway,
that he's
that's
in
what's
the
going
Austrian
on
group.
with him.
Yes. Anyway, so we're dislikes, I think.
So speaking of getting shot, I thought at the end of the very last, his friend gets shot, but they don't shoot him going to try to rescue his friend. I mean, like,
Hey,
come on, why'd
bullets
they
miss
stop
him.
shooting at the crowd?
That is you know why? Two things:
They have to keep the show going.
main character immunity and drama. That's
Okay. It's part of his contract.
or if you prefer plot armor, you can have main character
There you
immunity
go.
or
I like
plot
that.
armor.
You know what?
One or
This
the
makes me appreciate the time that the young boy Indy got so sick he almost died. I mean,
That's
that
a
was
good point.
close.
Yeah, that was close. That was close. So he has had brushes with death for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like plot armor. That's pretty good. Well, and for me, the thing that I guess I just really didn't like was I felt like Christopher Lee was underutilized. We were mentioning earlier how
that was,
so
but
cool.
it was nice.
Well,
the way he was in there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, here's the thing. This was before Christopher Lee became a huge star again.
Oh, okay.
At this point, because Lord of the Rings catapulted him. That was a huge shot in the arm for him in terms of his acting career. And the guy was like in his 60s already at that point.
Oh,
he had been acting since at least the 70s,
Yeah.
and he was he was known to people who are fans of horror movies, only because he played Dracula in a bunch of movies back in the at least the 70s. I could be wrong. I haven't seen a whole lot of them. But so he was known, but Lord of the Rings catapulted him. So this is pre-Lord of the Rings and Christopher Lee.
Dooku.
Which is hilarious because they said he played his character as a count.
Yes. Yes.
Oh yeah, that's funny.
It made me laugh.
Wow. If you want to, what's funny is you mentioned since we're on the topic of Christopher Lee, he was, and I think I made mention. I forget if this was in Edinburgh or not. So my apologies if it was. But I watch riff tracks every so often when I'm just like want something on for a little bit. And he's actually in this old black and white movie that comes up on riff tracks every so often. They have like a random rotation. and I'm trying to find the name of it. But he plays like the head of this coven of witches. I mean, spoilers. He's the head of it, but you don't know that right off the bat. But
just look at him. You can tell.
Right?
How do you think he got the role of Sauron?
So it's called The City of the Dead in 1960, and he's a professor in that. So in 1960, I don't know how old he was, but at least in his 30s, if not 40s. So he's by the 2000s, he's, I'm sure, really high up there, 80s maybe. But anyway.
Someone in the chat just pointed out that he was also the man with the golden gun. So
is that a James Bond?
That's a James Bond film.
Okay,
so yes.
Okay. Well,
it was a Roger Moore James Bond film.
Okay. Anyway, so all that to say, that's a good point, Nathan, that his star was waning maybe at this point. He was sort of like in a doldrum of his career. But still, I guess I felt like he was... It's hard for me to feel like it's
a small role that he elevated greatly.
That's true.
He did.
That's fine. Fine, guys, with your logic
just like
and
with
stuff.
Christopher Lee. I'm sorry I don't like him, but...
Oh, Ray Will, thank you. Christopher Lee's first film credit was 1948. Wow. That's crazy. Oh, my gosh.
To get to the Lord of the Rings.
Wow. Well, it's a long walk to Mordor, Paul.
Yes.
I don't know why I called you Paul.
That's why he teamed up with Saruman.
Wow.
Sauron.
He
was
sakes.
Saruman.
One does not simply walk into Mordor.
Way. Okay. So those are the things we liked, disliked about this chapter of Young Indiana Jones. So given this episode, would you be interested in seeing the next one? Or would you be like, no, I'm not going to watch anymore? Nathan, what's your vote?
I am actually really curious. I kind of want to go back and revisit the ones that I remember seeing when I was younger. And like I said, Indiana Jones is basically my favorite action hero, so I want to see more of it. Mm-hmm. And I would like to. The completionist in me is kind of kicking in. It's so much so that I actually did look up the DVDs for this thing because all of them have been released on DVD.
Oh, nice.
Right.
Okay. Nice. Paul, how about you? Would you want to continue watching if you weren't commissioned to do that? Or would you be like,
wait, someone's paying me
contractually obligated?
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Based on this episode alone, I thought the spy stuff was interesting enough, intriguing enough. I would want to see where it goes from here.
Okay.
So I would be interested.
Okay. Yeah. For me, I'm very interested to see. I'd be interested if he like stays in Russia and what happens there. I also wish that we had seen that Russian girl when he was a young kid come back and like them rekindle something.
Yeah.
I think that would have been a nice like touch point to like, oh, hey, you've been watching this kind of slow show for so long.
That would have been
Let's
a great
reward
two-parter from back in the back when they originally aired it.
Yes, exactly. So all these missed opportunities we're having with this, but regardless, okay. So we all sound like we'd be interested to keep watching. So this was a pretty good one on the whole.
Or I'm getting numb to it. I'm getting used to it.
I don't know. I'm a frog. I don't know I'm in this boiling pot of water.
The Stockholm syndrome is setting in right now.
Yeah, It's not too bad in here now. I'm a frog in water.
Oh my gosh. Well, thank you so much for listening to this one. And we'll be back in another month for chapter 14 of Young Indiana Jones. Until next time, whip-paw!